Hey, how's it going, everybody? Hopefully, you're having a great day. Appreciate you for tuning in to another episode. On this one, I wanted to talk about Stefon Diggs. He was introduced, formally, I guess, to the Patriots on Friday. He did his introductory press conference. He answered some questions. I thought he said some things that, if you maybe weren't in favor of the move, should give you reasons for being more optimistic about it. I like the move. It fills a need. Yes, he's coming off of the ACL injury, but you know, as he said, he's ahead of schedule. He wants to remain ahead of schedule. So he said, like, if he has to dial back the rehab, he'll do that. He'll do whatever he has to make sure he's ready. They asked him when he'd be ready. He said when the whistle blows, like week one, he plans on being out there. And I do think that some of this notion about him being a diva receiver and not necessarily being the best thing for Drake May's development. I think yes, sure he may have some diva-ish behavior, but I think his diva is different than some other wide receivers. Because I think with Diggs, it's this mentality that he knows he's better than who's lining up against him, and he wants the quarterback to know, like, you need a play, get me the ball. And I think that what we're seeing throughout this whole offseason, Vrabel is trying to change a mentality that's kind of, I guess, was kind of coming out from different insiders and everything about last year's team. That there were some guys who were acting kind of entitled and all this kind of stuff, and it looks like Vrabel's trying to change all of that. Now, I don't want to only talk about Diggs because we'll come back to him here in a little bit. Because the Celtics, I almost said the Celtics, the Patriots, sorry, made other news as well. They released Jawan Bentley, who's been a staple with the linebacking group for 7 years now. Was a team captain in a move that was kind of seen as surprising, like the David Andrews one. Once again, I think the way we need to look at it, yes, it's a move that kind of makes you pull back a little bit and wonder what's going on. I just think it's a move where Terrell Williams, Vrabel clearly have a vision for the defense, and they don't think Bentley fits it. I've heard some people talk about the timing of the cut and everything like that. Sure, I mean I don't necessarily get into details like that, but I do know, like, he Bentley didn't have any more guaranteed money on his contract, so it makes it easy to kind of just cut ties with him. And looking at the moves they made in the linebacking position, Landry as an outside linebacker, you got Spillane, you got Gibbons on the inside. It seems like the prototypical linebacker going forward will be more of a rangy type of running back. I mean, linebacker. Jeez, can't talk today. Um, so yeah, like I said, when looking at the cut, I was surprised. I thought you might have Spillane and Bentley patrolling the middle, but that was kind of before the Gibbons signing, I guess. And yeah, it just seems like they're making decisions that are based off of how they want this team to be going forward. So, uh, yet that add Bentley to the David Andrews and Jonathan Jones moves of veteran guys that have been here for several years, now going other places. And I'm sure they're not done, because there's another linebacker that everybody's kind of looking at to see, are they next in Jelani Tavai. And maybe that's something where post draft or something like that, if they go and get a linebacker or something like that, maybe Tavai becomes a casualty of that situation. But Tavai does have, I think, guaranteed money for another year or so. So maybe they just keep him around, see if they can get something. Maybe he's a trade candidate. for a pick or something. Like we'll have to see what goes on there. But like I said, main focus was on Diggs. Introductory press conference, he was asked about the wide receiver group in New England, and he basically said he wants to be somebody who sets an example, helps those guys become better versions of themselves. And I like that because I think a lot of this talk about the wide receiver group in New England and how poor it is all of a sudden, I think it's a little bit overblown because I can't sit here and trash Jalen Polk because of last season, because looking at last season's offense, can we really judge whether or not he was used correctly? And if that's the case, how do we know he's a bust? So I'm willing to see if he makes it through camp and everything like that and he's on the team, how does Josh McDaniels use him? Like Josh McDaniels has an established system that's worked in this league. Remember, Van Pelt, it was his first time being the guy calling plays. So there obviously was adjustment there with him. I know Polk had drop issues and everything like that, but that could have been lack of confidence because of how he was being used, which is something we heard from not only him, but Keon White and guys like that. So, well, not to say that Polk said anything. I'm just saying that we heard from other guys that were kind of questioning how they were being used. So maybe Polk was in that group, and that could have led to what he looks like last year. Because once again, when they drafted him, all the analysts and the experts said Polk is a plug and play type of guy day one. So I do think that there is something there with him. I mean, you already know Pop Douglas, who I think is seen as the best in that group of the young wide receivers. I feel like, with Diggs there, Hollins, maybe Pop Douglas settles it more into obviously like a slot role with maybe, once again, we'll have to see what McDaniels does with him. He's a guy who could probably move around a little bit. And Javon Baker, another guy who didn't have the best season last year. Let's see if he makes the team and everything like that. And what does McDaniels do with him? So I know the expectation is they're gonna draft a wide receiver because I think also the way Vrabel is going to take this as create competition, no more entitlement. So just because those guys were drafted last year or whatever, they're still young. But if Vrabel and Wolf and all those guys making the decisions, if they bring in somebody who's better than them, Vrabel has clearly shown he's not against moving on from guys who are already here because they weren't his choices. So I think that's a good thing. And I do think Diggs, with his mentality, which once again, talking about the diva behavior, is weird that he's seen as a potential problem, but he's been a captain everywhere he's been. He was a captain in Minnesota. Then he went out to Buffalo. He was a captain in Buffalo. Went to Houston. I think he was a captain there, but he was only there like a year. So, but from all I've heard, Houston loved him. So I do think a lot of that is a bit overblown about Diggs' demeanor. Like, will he have his blowups on the sideline? Probably, if he's not getting the ball. Yeah, but name a wide receiver that's good in this league that won't necessarily do that. I know there are some who will. So I mean, you can throw them in the comments. Your wide receiver who you think, but I'm just saying, it kind of comes with the position. A lot of wide receivers are very confident in their ability, and they kind of have to be great. Diggs did talk about how Vrabel was 100% a draw for him to join the Patriots. And I'm sure some will ask, like, well, if Belichick was still here, do you think Diggs would have? I mean, I'm sure Diggs probably would have been drawn to Belichick as well. I don't know. But he said the fact that Vrabel was a player and now as a coach, he feels like Vrabel can, how do you put it? I'm paraphrasing, but he's basically saying, like, because Vrabel understands the player and now the coach side, he can better relate to players, and that's something that Diggs likes on a personal level. He also talked about Drake May, and he said like, look, he's heard the comparisons to Josh Allen. He said he loves Josh Allen, so he's gonna love working with Drake May and helping him to be better on the field as well. He said well, young quarterback, good team, getting back on track. So that speaks to him being okay, obviously, with the team not necessarily being a contender right away. But I think he sees, and kind of like I do, there is a world next season where this Patriots team could be a playoff team. They do have a couple of things working with them. One, an upgrade in the coaching staff from Mayo to Vrabel. Vrabel has the experience. Secondly, you got to remember there is something that comes with winning only 4 games last year. Yes, a high draft pick, which we'll see what that turns into, but they get to play a last place schedule. Now they do have some tough games on the schedule for sure, but a lot of the teams that they will be playing struggled last season as well. So with their additions in free agency and potential additions that we will obviously see here in a few weeks with the draft, they could set themselves up to be in a better position than a lot of these teams that they're about to play this year. And yes, what the Commanders did last year will now be somewhat of the textbook in the standard for teams that struggle from one year and turn it around the next season. So could the Patriots be next in line to have a Commanders type transformation? Only time will tell. But I think ultimately, like I said, the Diggs signing, I like it. Like it a lot. And I think a lot of it is I think he'll produce on the field. Obviously, if he's healthy, I think he'll produce. But I think the mentality that he's going to bring, and hopefully, Douglas, Baker, and these guys pick up on it and kind of use that to make themselves better. Obviously, don't need them to turn into sideshows or anything like that, but that competitive nature could be the difference in, a first down here, a touchdown, a contested catch, something like that. So I'm high in the Diggs fit. I do still think that they will add a wide receiver, whether it's one of these vets that are still out here. I don't know. I feel like with each day that's gone on in free agency, I felt like they might just go with one vet and then draft one. But Tyler Lockett's still out there. Amari Cooper's still out there. If you're interested in either of those two, I think for most people they'll say Cooper probably has more tread on the tire, but I've always been a Tyler Lockett fan, so I would love to see Tyler Lockett in New England. But I kind of think that this is it in terms of free agency. I feel like Diggs is probably the last kind of big name signing. Like if they add anything else, it'll probably be minor. So, but obviously, if they do, I will do another video because the last one I did, which you should go check out, I talked about kind of when they introduced Milton Williams and all those guys who was the first wave of free agency. And now, obviously, Steph Diggs is the biggest name of the second wave. And like I said, clearly, like Vrabel is showing us a new direction for the Patriots franchise going forward. I'm all in for it. Look, I love Vrabel as a linebacker with the Patriots. I admired him from afar when he was coaching in Tennessee. I mean, he was the guy that took Tennessee into New England and beat them on, was it Brady's last game with the Patriots that ended with the pick six by Logan Ryan, I believe. So he was always the guy who went up against Belichick and did not back down. I love that. And now he's going to bring that kind of hard-nosed intensity to a New England team that, look, since Brady's gone, it's been a downhill spiral. And I do think Vrabel is going to be the guy to kind of turn the tide and get the Patriots back to where they want to be, which is a playoff team. Obviously, most people say, oh, get back to being Super Bowl champions. look, there's levels to this. You got to make it back to the playoffs first before you can even think about being a Super Bowl contender. So that's all I'm looking for. If it's not next year, which I think they should be at least in contention for a wild card, maybe in Vrabel's second year, we're talking about the Patriots being a playoff team. But you let me know what you think about the Diggs signing. Are you a fan of it? Do you not like it? Would you rather them go after a different wide receiver? And I'm not asking that for, those of you who wanted DK Metcalf and some of these other wide receivers. I'm just saying, out of the ones who are available, Diggs, Lockett, Cooper, was Diggs your choice? Because I think the other ones, like we know what went on there. Like, DK was traded to the Steelers. Okay. Godwin went back to Tampa Bay. Cooper wanted to stay on the West Coast. Like, that's why it's free agency. Guys are able to do what they want. So sometimes it just doesn't work out for you with other players. But Diggs is in. So let me know what you think about the Diggs signing in the comments. Love to hear from you. I will respond back. I try to respond back to every comment. I feel like I've done so. Yeah, so far, gonna keep it going. So appreciate you for tuning in. I really do. Make sure you check out some of the other content on my channel. Greatly appreciate it. I would love if you're new, or even if you've seen a couple of videos and have been on the fence about it, go ahead and hit the follow or subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, until next time, be safe. God bless. I'll catch you next time. All right, I'm out of here. Bye.